not only for Taiwan self-defense, military self-defense, but also need the United States, Japan, and other good-minded democratic nations. We can work together to deter aggression, i.e. to deter China from taking further very aggressive military, political, economic action in the Asian Pacific. How we can work together? This is what I share with you. We should work together for the regional security cooperation. Just like after the end of World War II, European nations, under the shadow of Soviet Union's gigantic military power, 10, 15, 20, now almost 25 nations, West European countries working together, forming NATO powers after the end of World War II. They're working together not only military, but also politically, strategically, economically working together as a very powerful bloc to deter from the Soviet Union. Therefore, I propose how we can work together, at least start from Taiwan and the United States, probably Japan, and we can expand to the Southeast nations. They also facing China's aggressive action, particularly in South China Seas. China militarized the South China Sea. They built the air base, missile power base. So Vietnam, Philippines, Singapore, Australia, we are facing the China's threat together. Therefore, because of time limited, I only propose several points, my talking points, and I would like to share with you. What I recommend, I think as Seth just mentioned, few points I'd like to share with you too. The first, in accordance with the United States National Defense Authorization Act, passed both by the House and Senate and signed by the President, become a U.S. law. Under this National Defense Authorization Act, United States and Taiwan, we can have a joint military exercise together, like a Rampact. Rampact is Pacific Rampact nations together. Now it's, I think, 24 nations are invited every 2 years. There's joint military exercise in the Asian Pacific. China was invited 4 years ago. But this year, because of they are too aggressive, so China decides not to invite China. So I propose the first, we'd like to join multilateral or bilateral military exercise with China. Not only increase our self-defense capability, but also deter China from taking further aggression or aggressive actions against Taiwan, against Japan, against Vietnam, Philippines, so on and so forth. Second, likewise, I'm appeal to the United States government to upgrade and expanding the existing bilateral political military dialogue we have for the past 10, 15 years. United States and Taiwan, we held annual monetary talk together, mainly in the United States. Every year, I led Taiwan's team twice to attend this annual monetary talk talking about political situation, talking about military situation across Taiwan, how two nations can work together. I propose we can expand that structure of bilateral talk into the 2+2 formal political military dialogue. So ministers of national defense and minister of foreign affairs from both Taiwan and United States can meet together every year or every other years, come together talking about national or international, political, military, or strategic relations. This can be done. Simply we invite more high-ranking officers together for 2+2 formal dialogue to deal with the peace, security together. The third, Taiwan purchased substantial military apparatus from the United States. Before we also procured the jet fighter or the warships from France. When I was served in the national defense in Taiwan, almost 70% of our military apparatus are procured from United States or from France. That is very important for Taiwan self-defense capability. But more important is we should work together through the dialogue, formation of collective security cooperation with the United States, with Japan, particularly. Japan, I understand, I want to talk to the Japanese friends. They are very, very concerned about aggression, expansion of military from China. Therefore, I propose we should set up a mechanism for the military emergency mechanism together among United States, Taiwan, Japan together. Even at the peacetime working dialogue together to see how to working together to deter China. That kind of soft powers, that kind of mechanism would help peace and stability in the Asian Pacific, because China would understand we, Taiwan, are not standing alone. We are working together with the United States, Japan, and also some other nation in Southeast Asia. 4, I would recommend to materialize this kind of regional security cooperation, we set up a task, actual task for the emergency management. So when anything happens across Taiwan Strait or South China Sea or either in Okinawa, East China Sea area, this task force can working together right away instead of waiting for a week or 2 weeks or even a month. This I suggest to the United States before. I know the United States like to consider that, but did not materialize because of China. United States did not tell me that China, but the I know because China factor, China's against Taiwan become a partner with the United States or Japan, because this will be their red line. They don't like to see Taiwan cross the red line. Fifth point, in order to, Taiwan would like to talk with the United States, Japan, and some other nations for the cost sharing to maintain this kind of task force. This task force, not only in the military sense, but also at the peacetime, we can work together to deal with terrorism, anti-terrorism, anti-piracy in the international open seas. And okay, working this task force can work together to help for the military, for the humanitarian relief. For instance, the last 10, 15 years, I know for a fact, when there's a sea disasters, because of ransom or typhoon, so many fishing boats, they think, or for some other reason, they need support to rescue them. Taiwan, we dispatch our naval force, Coast Guard, even helicopter, to rescue this fishermen or oil tankers. We can work together. We have to share the cost, just like the United States in the 409 in Afghanistan. Taiwan, along with the many countries, we shared cost in operation in the Afghanistan war to help to the relief, to help the civilian for the medical care, support, and so on and so forth. We know we can help to share the expenses. The sixth point is, I'd like to see United States revise its outdated the guideline to deal with Taiwan situation since 1994, almost 25 years ago. Under this guideline, U.S. State Department guideline, the ministers of defense, foreign affairs, our president, vice president, and premier cannot come to Washington, D.C. to pay a visit. We cannot come here. We can only, our president can only stop over the New York, Miami, but cannot come to the D.C. to have substantive talk with the U.S. ranking officers. So I'm suggesting State Department, this afternoon I'm going to see the friends from the State Department. I would like to propose for them to consider whether they are willing to revise such kind of guideline. And also, I would suggest that United States change or revise their so-called U.S. one-China policy. This has happened for the last 30 years. U.S. one-China policy, to many of Taiwan, the Taiwanese people, including myself, that U.S. one-China policy does this service to Taiwan and hurt Taiwan to participate in the international community, like the UN, like the WHO, like ICAO. Of course, we like to see Taiwan be recognized by the United States as a nation, and also by other countries. That's why the U.S. one-China approach hurt Taiwan so much. Because the U.S. wouldn't recognize Taiwan as a nation. Therefore, so many nations, but including Japan, Canada, and some other nations, they would not follow to recognize Taiwan as a sovereign state. That's hurt Taiwan. Our effort to join international community, to hurt our effort to contribute our economical power to the world. We did contribute $6.6 billion US for the last 25 years to help, to provide to the African, to the Mediterranean friends, medical support. We can help. We are more than happy, willing to help. But we are not a member of UN. We're not a member of WHO. Therefore, we are asking for your support to change the U.S. so-called guideline, State Department guideline in dealing with Taiwan. So this is my talking point. I don't know whether I missed anything. Oh, finally, in accordance with the U.S. law or legislations, we like to see, we welcome the U.S. warship or jet fighter to visit Taiwan's airfields or ports, vice versa. For the military joint training or military exercise together at peacetime, of course, during the wartime. We can work together for peace and stability. That's my talking point. If like the piece, that's only 1 page, you can have in the back. So that's what I have to say. Can I step down?
Step up.
Step up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for your coming, and thanks, Seth, for this opportunity to speak in the very privileged institute, Hudson Institute. And today, it's not an advertisement for FAPA, actually introduction of FAPA, what FAPA has done in the last 35 years for the Taiwan and U.S. relationship. And before I start my talk, let me ask you, how many of you know this organization called Formosan Association for Public Affairs that's located in Washington, D.C.? Pretty good. That's about 1/3 of them. That means I need to do better advertisement for this afternoon. I have been the president of this organization since last February, so it's about 1.5 years. Before that, I worked for a government agency, Johnson Space Center in Houston. You know what I do for this for Johnson Space Center? I took care of astronauts' health by providing their quick, high-quality space food and space water and space air system. That's what I did for the last 38 years. I retired last year. And now I'm the full-time president for this nonprofit organization. Let me give you a very brief history of this organization. This established in 1982 with very few people, less than 100, and and only 5 chapters. The background of this, the forming of this organization, because that time, in the 1980s, Taiwan was still under dictatorship of Chinese government, escape from China. They ruled the islands from 1948 all the way till 1996. 1996 become finally a democratic country with pretty much freedom. So that time when we formed this organization, our purpose is very easy, very simple, to promote freedom, human rights, and democracy of the people of Taiwan. Current status FAPA, after 35 years development, Taiwan has been changed, the United States has changed, our member has changed so a lot. So nowadays we have 47 chapters in 35 states. We have more than 3,000 members around this 35 states and with a lot of donors too. Our total budget was very, very limited, probably $700,000, probably less than one director's salary here, right? I'm sorry, I'm joking. Yeah, with this amount, with such a tiny amount of budget, we are able to hire full-time staff, and constantly we have two to three interns working in our office. They are paid interns. And our office is located not too far away from Capitol Hill. The reason we can operate this office with such a small, tiny budget, because we have very passionate young generation Taiwanese American. They are willing to sacrifice their career. They stay with us. They don't ask for overtime pay. Nowadays, after a certain year, we finally have a very clear mission. The first mission was to promote international support for the right of people of Taiwan to establish an independent, democratic country and join the international community.
Engagement for tonight. Thank you for your.
Okay, you can promote the relationship between the corporation and the United States and Taiwan. That's what we do the most in our office, to protect the right of self-determination of the people of Taiwan. So I don't want to repeat that much. Let me give you a very brief introduction about what we do daily. We provide, we use an email system we have called Taiwan Communicate. Every week or sometimes twice a week, we use Taiwan Communicate to send our message that any Taiwan-related issue, updating all these congressman aid, think tank, and media. And we work with Congress to introduce a resolution or bill that benefits both U.S. and Taiwan. And we train and help our members to do grassroots advocacy so that the congressman will feel the pressure from our members that they have to support this bill so that they can get these people to vote. That's because we are their constituents, and so we have the voting power, so they need to pay attention to our demand. That's why we can get some of the resolution passed. I know you all know that's a so-called grassroots advocacy technique, right? In addition to the grassroots work, our staff in headquarters will visit congressman's office, senator's office to talk to them about the issue that relate to Taiwan-U.S. relationship and both mutual interest to both U.S. and Taiwan. If we just promote issues that benefit Taiwan, then the congressman will not be interested. We always promote issues that benefit to both countries so that the congressman will support us. And we have 3 reasons that why the congressman will always take note of what we say. because we share the American value. Everybody always say that, democracy, human rights, and freedom. That's what first thing. The second thing is all the congressmen recognize that all these people that can't talk to them are not selfish people. They visit Congress, they promote issues that help their home country. They don't talk to them for their own benefit. So like me, I sacrifice my vacation, I pay my own, pay a lot of my own money to come to Washington, D.C. to do the work. We do for our homeland. We don't work for ourselves. So they appreciate what we did. And the third thing is we're always talking about the issue that has a mutual benefit to both countries. That's why they support us. The last thing we do a lot is a non-ratification of Taiwan. Nowadays, you probably heard that all the airline companies have to list Taiwan as province of China, Taiwan as either Taiwan, China, or anyway, Taipei, or anyway, always have a China behind. Our organization have to always write to the company and say, hey, you guys wrong, you were wrong, you shouldn't put China behind Taiwan. Before 2 years ago, our successful rate is probably 50%. But nowadays, China's hand is pretty heavy. If you don't change Taiwan and province of China, most of the companies get penalized. So our successful rate has dropped a little bit. So that we did what we do, and this I'm going to give you some highlight of our accomplishment in this 35 years. Our first accomplishment is 1982. We separate Taiwan's immigration quota from China. You know, before that, Taiwanese can only have 700 people immigrant to the United States because we were under China's quota, 20,000 people a year, the whole China area. But in '82, we separate Taiwan from China. Taiwan itself got 20,000 immigrants. And Hong Kong has 700 too. We sought the U.S. support to lift in martial law in 1987. That's why Taiwanese appreciate FAPA a lot. They think FAPA did a lot for the democracy and freedom of Taiwanese. We use the congressman's voice to change the Taiwan political system. We play a very crucial role in lifting the blacklist of Taiwanese Americans to return and visit Taiwan. Before 1992, about 300 Taiwanese Americans are not allowed to visit Taiwan, even their parents passed away, even they have a special need to go back to visit China, including myself. I was not allowed to return to Taiwan until 1992, but before that, I personally changed my face, changed my name, changed my identity. I sneaked into Taiwan. I successfully returned to Taiwan and visit my family. I became the fugitive in newspaper for 3 days. So I'm very proud of what FAPA has done for lifting this black list. Elect the piece of legislation allow Taiwanese Americans to write Taiwan as the place of birth. Before this resolution, all our passport has to list our birth as China. But nowadays, our people, Taiwanese American or people in Taiwan can list their birthplace as Taiwan. And we initiate, we have Tayuna group here. Their job is to try to promote Taiwan to enter United Nations. But since year 2000, we start to promote, to help Taiwan to join WHA, WHO, and since year 2000, we some of the year we passed a resolution in the House, but never be able to, until year 2005, we finally passed an act signed by the president. That means United States government must help Taiwan to get into WHA. That's our first act of FAPA has ever succeeded. To try to ask the United States government to help Taiwan to get into WHA. And that time our department, that department is health and, what's the department? Yeah, Health and Human Service Department. He did openly speak in the WHA to promote the right of Taiwanese to join this organization. And a lot of other accomplishments. I don't want to repeat it. I don't want to waste my time. And the most important, most of you know the most, is Taiwan Travel Act passed last year in March, right? That act is very easy to do, but it took us almost 15 years to accomplish it. We first introduced 2004, but was not passed until last year. And it's very easy thing, but so difficult to achieve because we only ask for the 5 Taiwanese officials who are not allowed to visit Washington, D.C. Now this law passed. These are 5 people, our president, vice president, and premier, and defense department head, and foreign service department head. These 5 people were not allowed to enter the United States. Now with this act, legally they should be able to visit the United States, but Washington, D.C. But so far, there are still, none of them is allowed to visit Washington, D.C. yet. That's why we are still working on this issue. Current issue we're working on, okay, I have a few minutes left. The first thing is we want to change the TECRO's name. TECRO means Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office. In this whole long name does not have any Taiwan in there. We want to change the name. We change the TECRO name into Taiwan Representative Office. It shows Taiwan it's not a real embassy name. Taiwan should be Taiwan Embassy. No, we want to change it Taiwan Representative Office. We want to make AIT Director be an ambassador through the Senate confirmation. And so the most important thing, just Dr. Tsai already said that we want to challenge the one China policy and U.S. one China policy and China's one China principle. And the last one we're also pushing is Taiwan Assurance Act. Taiwan Assurance Act is almost the higher level of the Taiwan Relation Act, has a stronger protection, has a stronger assurance about the Taiwan's future. So that's what we are doing right now. In my conclusion, I would like to ask in any opportunity, any people I met in the foreign I met, I would ask them, the free and democratic country in the world should band together to stop China's aggression toward Taiwan and Southeast Asia, and maybe to the whole world. Without Trump administration help and all the Congress and Senate help, FAPA itself or the Taiwan government itself won't be able to have all this support from the United States. And we appreciate this opportunity. We never had this good relationship during the last 30-some years until this Trump administration became the president, and all the staff, his staff behind him working for this administration has such a strong support for Taiwan. And FAPA was one of the strongest forces behind Taiwan, and we will continue our strongest force. We still want to be one of the strongest forces behind Taiwan to promote Taiwan freedom, democracy, and self-determination until Taiwan becomes a free and independent and a normal country. Thank you very much. If you have a question.
Thank you, Dr. Pope. So we have time for some questions from the floor, and I would appreciate it if, when you're recognized, you would tell us your name and what organization you represent, if in fact you do, and also to whom you are addressing the question. And finally, if you could pose the question in the form of a question, as opposed to a speech, that would be especially appreciated. Rick? And the mic will be here in a moment.
Seth, thank you very much. I'm Rick Fisher with the International Assessment and Strategy Center. The question is for former Defense Minister Tsai, who gave some very forward-looking and positive suggestions befitting the first civilian Minister of National Defense. Michael, I'd like to ask you, Taiwan has a very important national resource, the Chongshan Institute, which is responsible for having developed a number of advanced weapon systems, and Taiwan for a number of years has been marketing many of these advanced weapon systems. But my specific question to you is, what might the Chongshan Institute be working on that would offer opportunities to American companies for co-development? Are there technologies that the Institute is working on that you think would be of interest and would advance the mutual defense of our countries, or perhaps even your other neighbors and future defense partners? Of course, I wouldn't want you to fall into betraying any classified information, but the Chongshan Institute is a real resource for Taiwan, and I believe that there are opportunities there that can be had. Thank you.
Go ahead, the question, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you, Richard Fishers. I should be recognized. You should be recognized. Also, I have the recognized my good friends, Professor Herbert Regenbogen of the American Catholic University here. To answer the Rick, for the past 10-15 years, when I had a chance to serve in the National Defense Taiwan, 中山科学研究院，中山Science Research Center. We're working very hard. I support the National Indigenous Research and Development Program for the military apparatus, such as missile, such as submarine, such as our frigates, such as some others we call it deterrent military weapons. We are capable to research and develop that kind of weapon. And we have done this, particularly the short range and medium range missile. And we also design and manufacturing our frigates, the ships, military ship ourselves, instead of buying from the United States. And we also design and develop our very sophisticated tank ourselves. But to your questions, whether Taiwan can work together to cooperate with other nations, including the United States, my personal view, my personal answer is we will be more than happy to work together. For the United States with Japan, I think last few weeks a Japanese retired general come to us through the our dialogue. Taiwan and Japan, we can work together through the weapon research or intelligence sharing together. But I'm not active. I'm the retired old soldier now. I cannot promise, say, this kind of advanced science or technology can be shared or work together with other nations. But if I have a chance to advise the government, I will do. I don't know if I answer your questions, but some other very sensitive data I cannot talk openly, even I'm retired. But I think I'm still bounded by the national defense law. I'm sorry for that. Privately, I would more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Another question here, and then we'll go to the corner of the room over there.
Good afternoon, I'm Chris Orr. I'm currently a policy analyst contract in support of the DoD, former Air Force officer, former DHS, and former colleagues of Rick's way a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. My question, I guess, to be directed both at Michael and or Seth. We talked about Taiwan acquiring, the M1 Abrams main battle tanks and missiles and F-16s. What I'm wondering about is how do Taiwan's capabilities stack up against the PRCs in terms of special operations forces, submarines, and anti-submarine warfare capability? Thank you.
So first, well, on submarines, there's a lot of work to be done. And despite the agreements that the George W. Bush administration made on submarines, Taiwan is basically thrown back on one choice at this point, which is to build an indigenous submarine. It's very difficult, and it requires even more, it requires a great deal of assistance from the outside. Vital systems like torpedo tubes, periscopes, sophisticated stuff, combat integration systems. Those are all things that the United States could help with, and I hope will. But otherwise, Taiwan submarine fleet, such as it is old, and there's a good reason for replacing it as soon as possible. And the resources, especially the financial ones, are as necessary as the technology. Technology is impossible without buying it. On the special operations side, I don't know, and I'm happy to defer to Michael on that.
There are two major vital threat against Taiwan from PLA. One, submarine, underwater warfare systems. The second, missile. That's two of the vital threat against Taiwan. The submarines development program, we are far behind. Although 15 years ago, when I was served in the M&D in Taiwan, I strongly recommend we have to develop the indigenous development for Taiwan for the submarine. But didn't materialize. And the U.S. The government under the George Bush instruction, U.S. was planning to sell the 8 diesel-powered submarine to us, but that did not materialize either. Therefore, now under the current government, 2 years ago, we start to undertaking the submarine project. But because of sophistication of the submarine systems, we need technical support from the United States, probably also from Japan and other nations as well. If this project, indigenous submarine project can be materialized, I think in the next 5 to 7 years, we should first, our nation build a submarine will come into service. But in the interim, in this period, the next 5 or 7 years, we're still seeking for the alternative if we can purchase new submarine of used submarine for Taiwan. This is what I personally believe. Submarines warfare is very important to ensure we are capable to deter China from taking the submarine systems attack against Taiwan. This is what my personal view.
There's a question.
Thank you. I'm from Taiwan, and I'm the member of the TAIUNA. Thank you, Dr. Guo, to introduce the TAIUNA. Our job is to use Taiwan's name to go to the UN. And because the couple years we have been walking, even a couple days ago, we walking from the 42th Street, New York, to the China Embassy. We wanted to peaceful to say, use Taiwan's name to into the UN. And my question is for Mr. Seth, is if American wanted to enforce US and Taiwan defense and sell Taiwan so many weapons, we can defend ourselves. But if we can use Taiwan's name, then the world know Taiwan is Taiwan. So it doesn't defend the policy, American policy, because American policy is one China policy, or China policy is one China policy. So that isn't complex. There's one Taiwan, one China. So if that we can use Taiwan's name to go to UN to contribute our duty for the world, or into the WHA, like the 2004 SARS. That disease, because from China, the disease stopped in Taiwan. So other country doesn't know that. Other country, they didn't know there's a SARS. So many medical person, nurse, doctors die of that. So Mr. says, is that Taiwan's name to into the UN help to defend the Pacific safety? Thank you.
If I understand the question correctly, you're asking what are the possibilities for American policy to change so that it recognizes, so that it changes the one China policy, basically.
I won't ask to change American policy, but as the Taiwan's name, you just use Taiwan's name, doesn't have the same goal. Like it's one China, one Taiwan, so we are just okay, that's the American policy. You can really use one China policy, but we still can use Taiwan's name into the UN because we don't have the seat, we don't have the right to speak to the world. Like anywhere I cannot go, even last year I was the Fulbrighter, I cannot go to the UN because my passport, that's the Chinese, something Taiwan of China. And people say, no, you cannot come because you are Chinese. I said, no, that's Taiwan. But that's the China there. I know that's the Taiwan government, we should do that. But the thing is, TAIUNA wanted to use the Taiwan's name to go to UN. Is this also the same benefit as American? Because use Taiwan's name, then know the world, to know Taiwan. Not just they say Chinese, Taiwan of Chinese, Chinese of Taiwan. No, we don't want, oh, Chinese Taipei. No, we don't want that. We want a Taiwan. It's clear, easy, and
that's largely up to the UN, and in that in that the United States is a significant player because of the amount of money that the United States gives to the UN. But it also requires a change in American policy. And I think that the only reasonable answer to that question now is comes of an observation that I am not the first to make, which is that as the understanding in the United States of what China is up to increases. In other words, as Americans realize that this is not only a question of trade and tariffs and intellectual property, but also a question of Chinese influence and power projection and the size of their military and their aggressiveness and the consequences, both economic and political and military, of the One Belt, One Road. As understanding of that increases, I think that the chances for the change that you're talking about also increase. A more specific answer than that, I can't give.
Thank you. I hope that you really wish to use Taiwan Center to get to UN. And then maybe
I understand. Sir, can't quite see here, but yes.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. My name is Julian Kyle Lewis from the American University here in Washington. My question is for Mr. Tsai from Taiwan. We understand that the Chinese have rendered the strategic positioning geographically of Taiwan obsolete by their construction of man-made islands. One of these islands being crafted in the dimensions of the Beltway here in Washington. And in our awareness of that, I would like to ask you, what are your thoughts on the role that the President of Taiwan should play in Chinese and American diplomatic relations in terms of her being one of the only, if not the only, or one of the only women leading an Asian nation? So in the event that you would deny like an F-16, or in the event that you would deny something that's very late model, that may be like a disrespectful offer to you militarily because of your strategic positioning, what kind of role do you see the President of Taiwan playing juxtaposed to what China might do in response? Thank you very much.
China is going to expand their national territory through the using up the artificial isolate in South China Sea. And they also militarize this artificial island into military bases. There are three air should take off airfield in this artificial man-made island in South China Sea, 3,000 meters. So their jet, China's jet, can land in and they'll take off from this island sea. And also China claim this island, this homemade, artificial man-made island is their territory, and they expand the territorial water as well. So this is what we don't like it from Taiwan's point of view, and also from the Philippines, from Vietnam, and from other nations. Therefore, United States is challenging this China's kind of military action by building the military bases in this artificial man-made islands. By United States send the frigate, destroyers, goes through this area to challenge China's to me is illegal under the international law. Because 2 years ago, the International Marine Court rendered a judgment, said that China expanding, claim the island or their national territory is illegal and against international law. But China will not listen. They're still doing that. Therefore, I think that's why I'm saying that regional security cooperation is very important. Because the Vietnam government complained a lot to China, but China would not listen. So the Philippine government complained against China for the territory expansion. China would not listen. Only the United States. If the United States can working together with the surrounding nations, including Taiwan, that would serve the effective deterrent power against China from expanding their territory water, or stop them by the working together collective security cooperation. That's my personal view.
I think we have time for one more question, John.
Do I need a microphone?
It's on its way.
Okay. There you go. No worries.
Yeah, Jan van Tol, CSBA think tank up the road. Quick question, it's a simple one and a complex one for both you gentlemen. Taiwanese defense spending is basically flat in real terms. Why is it that Taiwan, as the Chinese threat mounts so steadily, doesn't increase the level of defense spending, which may convince certain skeptical American audiences that Taiwan is serious about defending itself?
You ask me?
Both.
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 Yeah, Taiwan's defense budget in the last 10 years is below 3% for a long time. During the President Chen's time, President Chen tried to increase to 3%, but all the military budget was slashed down was either stopped or totally voted down by the KMT's legislator. So during those 8 years of President Chen, we cannot get any advanced weapon system from the United States, even though President George Bush promised to to provide 8 submarines to Taiwan that time, but all the budget was slashed. This year, I saw the Taiwan's military budget increased to 2.6 something, 2.8, but still below the 3% target. And the reason we could not reach that 3% is we are so-called mandate payment to those so-called retired officers, military, teacher, and those government officers. It took almost all the current officer salary, almost 60% or total budget. So reduce the payment to the retirement officer, that would save about $2 billion a year. And also increase the export, the industrial production, and also we'll try to produce some of the weapon systems ourselves. So the budget will all kind of, I know they are doing the way to reach the 3%. And also they always try to use a so-called special budget that exceeds the original budget. So a special budget, that means they borrow money from the future and they pay for the weapon system. So overall, I think that the real budget is over 3%.
All right, I simply tell this friends, I'm the one to support Taiwan's national defense budget increase substantially up to the 3% of GDP, of Taiwan's national GDP. Therefore, One of us served in the MND Taiwan as a vice minister and later become minister. 2007, 2008, our national budget reached 2.86% of our GDP, very close to this 3%. But since then, for the last 10 years or so, our national defense budget is decreasing. Now, I think last year we have only 1.86, even only less than 2% of our national GDP. But as Dr. Guo just mentioned that, we are prepared to have a special budget with particularly military procurement program. Like the United States promised to sell the 66 F-16V jet fighters. Then I understand last week our Executive Yuan, Xing Zhengyuan, had passed the special budget for 32 billion 320亿 special budget. That's for particularly jet procurement program from the United States. So if that add into that national regular annual budget, then our total defense budget would increase to 2.5 or 2.6. But even that was still less. This is the reason why I agree with you, we should increase. I urge the government, not only the now DPP government, but also former the KMT government. Several years ago, I thought our national defense budget should increase substantially to show our determination to assure that our self-defense capability. That's what I believe what you say.
Well, Mr. Tsai, Dr. Poe, all of you who came out this afternoon, I'd like to thank you very much for your presentations, for joining us today. Very useful discussion and presentations. And if you, as they say, stay tuned to the Hudson Channel, you will see that there will be more in the future. And I look forward to those and to seeing you all here again. And bring a friend. Thank you very much.